All right, Algebra 2, welcome to your section 5.5, 5.8 quiz review video. Okay, you have these answers already. I just wanted to make a video to maybe explain everything more fully. On your quiz, which is on Monday, you're going to have about 10 or 11 factoring questions, and I expect 2 or 3 are going to be like this. When you have the sum of two cubes, you take the cubed root of both of these. The cubed root of x to the third is x. The cubed root of 8 is 2. 2 to the third is 8. Always bring down that same sign, plus. Take the first term and you square it. Then, if that's a plus, this has to be a minus. Always the opposite sign. You take the inner product there. X times 2 is 2x, and you take the second number there, 2, and square it to get 4. That is how it's factors. On number 2 there, take the cubed root of x, that's to the third, that's x. Take the cubed root of 27, that's 3. Got x minus 3, going to take x and square it. That's a negative. The opposite sign is positive. X times 3 is 3x. Negative 3 squared is 9. This next one, one thing different here is when you take the cubed root of 8, you get 2. Same sign. If that's a plus, that's going to be a plus. The cubed root of 125 is 5. Take that first term and square it. 4x squared. The inner product is 2x times 5, which is 10x. You have opposite signs. If that's a positive, that's a negative. You're going to take 5 then and square it to get 25. On number 4, same deal. Take the cubed root of 27, which is 3, minus take the cubed root of 8, which is 2. That first term, you're going to square all of it to get 9x squared. If that was a negative, that's a positive. The inner product, 3x times 2 is 6x. Take the second term and you square it to get 4. All right, put that on your cheat sheet. Then number 5, it's kind of like basic factor, and you just ask yourself what multiplies 24. Differs by 2. That'd be 6 and 4. Middle term's positive. That's plus 6. That's minus 4. Now, if on your quiz I say simplify fully, you need to factor x squared minus 4. It's the difference of two perfect squares. That's x plus 2x minus 2. If I don't say simplify fully, I would accept that answer. All right, so same deal on 6. What multiplies to 12 adds to a negative 7? That'd be negative 3 and negative 4 again. X squared minus 3, the difference of two perfect squares can be written as x plus 2x minus 2. If I don't say simplify fully, you can leave that answer. On number 7, what multiplies to 42? It differs by 1. Positive 7, negative 6. None of those are differences of two perfect squares. Again, how do you get x to the 4th? It's got to be x squared times x squared. Lastly, number 8. What multiplies to 40 and differs by 3? Negative 8 and 5. X squared minus 8, x squared plus 5. All right. Number 9 here is kind of like the same thing on 8. We're going to take it one step further. We're going to solve set equal to 0. What multiplies to 8 adds to a negative 6. You get x squared minus 4, x squared minus 2. Cover up method. You have x squared minus 4 equals 0. You have x squared minus 2 equals 0. So move the 4 over, move the 2 over. When you take the square root of 4, plus or minus 2. When you take the square root of 2, you get plus or minus root 2. On 10, what multiplies to 54 and differs by 3? That'd be negative 9 and 6. Move the 9 over. You get x squared equals 9. When you take the square root of 9, you get plus or minus 3. Move the 6 over. Now you have x squared equals a negative 6. When you take the square root of a negative 6, first off, always plus or minus. Got to take out the I root 6. All right, and that's kind of same deal on 11, only you get x squared plus 3, x squared plus 2 equals 0. You get x squared equals negative 3, x squared equals negative 2 when you take the square root of a negative. Right here and right here. You get plus or minus I root 3, plus or minus I root 2. Number 12, there it is, folks. I don't know if we need any more explanation. These are really kind of the same type of question here on out. Again, what multiplies 72? Differs by 1. Cover up method. Move the numbers over. When you take the square root of a negative, you get I. Take the square root of 9, you get plus or minus 3. Don't forget about the plus or minus, folks. Plus or minus gives you both answers. There's 4 answers on these, not 2. All right, and then here's 15. Okay, and then here is 16. No i's because you're taking the square root of positive. Again, if you're confused, Take the square root of 8, you get a decimal, you get an actual answer. If you take the square root of -8, your calculator is going to say domain error. Okay, there should be no question as to whether what's going to be imaginary and what's not. Now, 17 through 20 could represent the harder ones on your quiz. Okay, you got to factor like we did on the very first 4. How do you factor x to the third plus 125? Take the cube root of x to the third. Take the cube root of 125. Take the first term and square it. That's a plus, that's a minus. The inner product is 5x. Take 5 and square it to get 25. You simply set this equal to 0. That's how you get -5. You always have to use the quadratic formula to solve for the second part. X equal the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. It's going to be I root 75 because you're going to have 25 minus 100, which is the square root of -75. Just bring the I out. Some of your calculators will say 5i root 3. It's perfect. So here's how number 8 goes. Number 18 is pretty fair. You factor it. X to the third minus 8 would be, take the cube root of both. X minus 2. Take the first term, square it. That's a negative, that's a positive. The inner product would be 2 times x. Take -2 and square it to get 4. Cover up method, you have x minus 2 is 0. X equals 2. You got to use the quadratic formula there. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You got 4 minus 16, which is -12. That's I root 12. Or some of your calculators would say 2i root 3. All right. That's how you do 19. Take the cube root of 8. Take the cube root of 27. Again, your one real root is going to be 2x minus 3 equals 0. X is 3 over 2. Then you use quadratic formula for this part. That's how you do 20. Okay, we know how to factor it by now. You get the square root of -432, which is called I root 432. That's a big number. 22, how do you get x to the 6th? Notice it said find the rational roots. It's got to be x to the third, x to the third. So you can simply, when you get 1 multiplies to 8 differs by 7. First off, -8, +1. You can simply move. You don't have to factor this like we did up top. You don't have to factor this like we did up top. Simply move the 8 over. X to the third equals 8. 2 to the third is 8. X to the third is -1. -1 to the third is -1. Okay, you can leave your answer like that. On 23, in order to find the other factors, if I tell you something is a factor, set it equal to 0. First off, you're going to do synthetic division. 1x to the third, 0x squared, -7x, and 6. You bring down the 1. You multiply and add. Multiply and add. You multiply and add. You better get a remainder of 0. I've told you something's a factor, so it goes in cleanly. What does 1, 2, -3 stand for? 1x squared plus 2x minus 3. How does that factor? What multiplies to 3? Differs by 2. +3 and -1. That is your actual answer. And the next one, you write a 1 for 1x squared, 5, or for 1x to the third, 5 for 5x squared, -4 for -4x, -4 for -20. If I tell you that x plus 2 is a factor, set it equal to 0. X equals -2 is a solution. All right, bring down the 1. -2 times 1, add them up. -2 times 3, add them up. -2 times -10, add them up. You get 0 as a remainder. This is 1x squared plus 3x minus 10. What multiplies 10 differs by 3. +5, -2. All right, look, there's the work for 25. It's pretty self-explanatory. Same deal. All right. And there is the work for 26. You just got to put a 0 in for 0x squared. All right. Now in 27, if I tell you x is 4 is the solution, then that means x minus 4 is a factor. It's already been set equals 0. You put 4 in the cubby. 1 for 1x to the third, -3 for -3x squared, -10 for -10x, 24 for the constant 24. Do synthetic division like we did up top. This is 1x squared plus x minus 6. Okay, we factor it like we did above. We just set it equal to 0. So you get x equals -3 and x equals 2. All right, that's just one extra step from what we just did. Then, folks, solve each equation. 1 multiplies 16 differs by 0. That's x squared minus 4, x squared plus 4. Cover up method, x squared equals 4, x squared equals negative 4. Take the square roots, plus or minus 2 plus or minus I root 4, which is plus or minus 2i. Factor out what they have in common, folks. They all have, because I made a mistake, we corrected this in class, that should be 15x. So take out the x, now what they all have in common. Put the x on the outside, then you factor this. 1 multiplies 15, adds to 8, 5 and 3. Cover up method, you get x is 0, x is negative 5, then x is negative 3. Don't forget about that x is 0 though. 30, you got to factor by grouping when you have four terms. What do those two terms have in common? They both have x to the second. When you divide x to the second away from both, get x plus 6. You always bring down the sign in the middle. What do those two terms have in common? A positive 7. Divide them both by 7, you're left with x plus 6 again. Notice how those parentheses are the same. So x plus 6 goes in one parenthesis. Those outsiders, x plus 7. X squared plus 7 go together. X squared plus 7 equals 0. X plus 6 equals 0. That's how you get your two answers. 31, you factor out what they have in common in x. Then you ask yourself what multiplies 12 differs by 4. Negative 6 and 2. This time to get x to the fourth, it's got to be x squared and x squared. First off, x equals 0 is your first solution. X squared minus 6 is 0, so x squared equals 6. X squared plus 2 equals 0, so x squared equals a negative 2. So you get your answers there. 32, factor out the x they have in common. What multiplies 21 adds to negative 10. It's x minus 7, x minus 3. So you get your three answers there. 33 is just like 31. Factor out the x they have in common. Ask yourself what multiplies 30 differs by 1. X squared minus 6. X squared plus 5. Cover up method. X squared equals 6. X squared equals negative 5. X equals 0. And those are your answers. All right. Getting close here. Write a polynomial function of least degree with the given zeros. I told you x is negative 4. I told you x is 1. I told you x is 2. So the opposite goes in the parenthesis. If I were to set this equal to 0, x plus 4, x minus 1, x minus 2. You can set that all equal to 0. I'm going to FOIL the first two together. I'm going to bring down the x minus 2. Then I'm just going to distribute x squared times x squared times negative 2, 3x times x, and so forth. And that equation is my answer. 35 is pretty easy. I told you x equals 0, x equals negative 2, x equals 4. So if x equals 0, it's just an x. That'd be x plus 2. That'd be x minus 4. I FOILed this first. And then I multiplied everything by an x. And that is my equation. Folks, if I tell you that x equals negative 3, x equals 2i, then the conjugate x equals negative 2i is also an answer. Remember, anytime we get i's, it's always plus or minus 3i, plus or minus 2i, plus or minus I root 5. Okay, you always have two answers with the i's. So that would be x plus 3. And how you get x squared equals negative 4 is you simply do x times x squared equals 2 times negative 2. That's how you get an answer of plus or minus 2i. X squared would have to be negative 4. Then you move the 4 over. X squared plus 4 would be in that parentheses, and it's simply FOIL. First, outer, inner, last. So just change the order there. And actually, the easiest one is 37. I give you x equals 0. If I tell you x equals 4i, then x equals negative 4i as well. You do x times x to get x squared equals 4 times negative 4, negative 16. X squared equals negative 16. Move the 16 over. Get x squared plus 16. Multiply just by x. That's your answer. Find the rational zeros. Because you set it equal to 0, you're going to factor by grouping here, like we did on the previous page, where the first two terms have in common, x squared. Take x squared away from both, you're left with 3x minus 5. Bring down the negative sign. Whatever the middle sign is, bring it down. 27 and 45 are multiples of 9. Dividing both by negative 9. Negative divided by negative is a positive 3x. A positive 45 divided by negative 9 is a negative 5. 3x minus 5 in one parenthesis. X squared minus 9 in the other. Cover up method, that's how you get your three answers. Ask yourself what multiplies 32 adds to a negative 12. It's negative 8, negative 4, set it equals 0. Again, find the rational zeros. You set the equation equal to 0. You're solving that equation. All right, that polynomial. X squared equals, oh, this would have cost me points. You guys need to change this on your answer sheet. That's very wrong. That's just x squared equals 8, so x equals plus or minus root 8, not I root 8. X squared equals 4, x equals plus or minus 2. It's a big boo-boo on my part. Then, on the past quiz, just thinking you know how to factor these. Just factor, not set them equal to 0, like we did on the previous one. What they have in common, take out the x. Multiplies 42, adds to 13, x plus 7, x plus 6. That's how 8 goes as well. Take the x out. 1 multiplies 50, differs by 5, 10, 5. 10's positive, 5's negative. Factor out the x they have in common. 1 multiplies 45, differs by 4, 9, 5. The 9's positive, 5's negative. Factor by grouping. What do these two have in common? They have an x squared. Again, you're just factoring. Leaving you with 3x plus 1. Bring down the plus they have in common. These are both multiples of 10. Divide them both by 10. You got 3x plus 1. 3x plus 1 goes in one parenthesis. The x squared plus 10 goes in the other. And then number 11. The first two terms have an x squared in common. Leaving you with 2x plus 5. You need to bring down the minus. Dividing both those terms by negative 7. That's how we're left with 2x. Negative divided by negative is a positive. 2x plus 5 goes in one. X squared minus 7 is in the other. Folks, I think that is a great review for your quiz. This is Yak Math Video signing out.